We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for October 26, 2022. I'm Stephen Nelson, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9:02 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 29633 will be continued to November. Case number 29634 will be continued to November. Case number 29637 will be dismissed. Case number 29640 will be continued to December. Case number 29230 will be continued to November. Case number 29405 will be continued to November. Case number 29346 will be continued to November. Case number 29643 will be dismissed. Case number 29646 will be dismissed. And case number 29647 will be dismissed. Case number 29652 will be dismissed. And case number 29653 will be continued to December. The administrative docket starts on page 4 with case number 29644 and goes through case number 29664. Case number 29664 will be remanded. The remainder of these cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the oil and gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with case number 29631, which is an application of Lime Rock Resources 3A LP for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley Bakken Pool to establish two overlapping 2560-acre spacing units, described as sections 28, 29, 32, and 33, and sections 29, 30, 31, and 32, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Lime Rock Resources 3A LP. I have three witnesses appearing telephonically. I'll call them now. It'll be Chris Carlson, Ann Winter, and Jeremy Jones. Hey, Chris, you guys all there? All right, we got you live here.
Begin with Chris Carlson. Can you hear me? Hello?
Chris,
Carlson?
are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Chris, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Chris Carlson, I'm a landman for Lime Rock Resources. Address 1111 Bagby, Suite 4600, Houston, Texas 77002.
And Chris, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
And are you familiar with the land matters associated with this hearing today?
That I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Carlson be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Chris, why don't you take us through your land exhibits? Let's start with number 1, if you can identify the first proposed 2560.
Yeah, Exhibit 1 is our first proposed 2560 in Montreal County, Township 155, 91, sections 28, 29, 32, and 33. Two side-by-side stand-up 1280s operated by Lime Rock, each with a working interest of 65.54%. For a combined interest of 65.54%, the next largest working interest in the combined unit is Cord Energy.
Okay.
Moving on to Exhibit 2, another map in Montreal County, Township 155, 91 West, comprised of sections 29, 30, 31, and 32. Again, two side-by-side stand-up 1280s operated by Lime Rock. A combined interest of 65.1%. Next largest working interest in the combined unit would be Petrogulf, followed again by Korg.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Carlson. I'd offer Exhibits 1 and 2.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Ms. Winter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
And can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, this is Ann Winter, employed by Lime Rock Resources as a geologist. Our address is 1111 Bagby Street, Suite 4600, Houston, Texas 77002.
And have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Are you familiar with the geology underlying these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Ms. Winter be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And let's start with exhibit number 3. Maybe just describe how you intend to develop the proposed 2560.
Absolutely. So on Exhibit 3, you can see the proposed 2560 outlined in dashed blue. The existing middle Bakken laterals are in solid purple. The proposed lateral for the lease line unit is in dashed orange. It's planned at approximately 200 feet east of the section line. It's going to be currently planned as part of a 3-well batch, with the other 2 wells planned to be drilled in sections 2932 as Three Forks first bench wells.
Okay. And then moving on to the next exhibit, can you describe the structure underlying this proposed 2560?
Yes. The structure map you see is the top of the Three Forks first bench in TVD subsea depth with a contour interval of 50 feet. The structure is dipping to the southwest, and you can see the control points in orange on the map.
Okay. And then let's move on to exhibit number 5. Just describe how you develop the other 2560.
Absolutely. Same layout as the previous exhibit with the proposed 2560 and blue dash lines, the existing middle Bakken in purple, existing Three Forks first bench in orange. To develop this DSU, you can see the proposed lease line well in dashed orange, planned approximately 200 feet from the section line of this unit. And it is planned as a 2-well batch, with the second well not depicted but planned in section 2932 east of the proposed Three Forks lease line well.
Okay. And then moving on to 6, can you describe the structure underlying this 2560?
Yes, this is the structure map on the top of the Three Forks first bench in TVD subsea with a contour interval of 50 feet, dipping to the southwest.
Okay. And let's move on to the type log, exhibit 7.
Yes, this is a type log Ream 1132H, which was drilled in section 32. This type log shows a Three Forks first bench thickness of 30 feet.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Winter. I'd offer exhibits 3 through 7.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
And this is Bruce Hicks. I'm looking at Exhibit 3. It appears all wells drilled in the area within your 2560 anyway, on both cases, are Middle Bakken. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And it appears that there are some offsetting Three Forks wells. Are those all first bench?
Yes, they're all first bench here.
And is that your proposal?
Yes, we're proposing to drill the Three Forks first bench here.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none? Mr. Jones, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jeremy, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Jeremy Jones. I'm employed by Lime Rock Resources. I'm a reservoir engineer. We're located at 1111 Bagby Street, Suite 4600, Houston, Texas, 77002.
And Jeremy, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, and are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with these 2560s?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Jones be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jeremy, let's go ahead. Can you take us through exhibit number 8 and summarize the reservoir data and economics?
Sure. So what we're looking at here, the excuse me, the volumetrics and the economic data for section 28, 29, 32, and 33 to make up the 2560. In the top box, this is for the Three Forks first bench formation, basic volumetric input. Of course, like we talked about, the 2560 for the acres, 44 feet for thickness, 7% for porosity, and a 20% water saturation. Along with the other volumetric inputs, including a 1.3 formation volume factor. This would give us an oil in place of just over 37.6 million barrels. Going down to the second box, from a recoverable standpoint, using a 20% recovery factor, this would give us just over 7.5 million barrels recoverable. In this particular 2560, there are no other Three Forks wells, so we're showing 0 for the existing EUR, giving us a full just over 7.5 million barrels. With the well that we're proposing, we're using a type curve that would generate 535,000 barrels of EUR with an assumed price deck of $78 per barrel and $4.63 per MCF for gas, at a total well cost of just over $8.4 million. This would generate an ROI of 2.9 with a payout right at 24 months.
Okay. And then exhibit number 9, I assume the volumetrics are pretty similar for this one. If there's any distinctions, can you just highlight those?
Yeah, the only difference here are two things. One is that the thickness is going to be 46 feet rather than the 44 feet. So that's going to give us an oil in place of just over 39 million barrels. The recoverable at a 20% recovery factor would be just under 7.9 million barrels. We do have, as was noted earlier, we do have 2 wells that are Three Forks first bench, the Garfield and the CGB. Combined, their EUR is expected to be right around 500,000 barrels. So that would give us a recoverable of just under 7.4 million barrels. The economics are the same, with the same capital costs and the same assumed type curve EUR.
Okay. And Jeremy, in your opinion, would creation of these 2560s to allow for those lease line wells prevent waste, protect relative rights?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Jones, and I'd offer the remaining exhibits 8 and 9 and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jeremy, this is actually probably a question for Ann, I guess, since she testified on them, but your intent with the lease line wells, and I apologize if I missed it, but is that to put the lease line well down the section line, or is it going to be offset like depicted on your exhibits 3 and 5?
I'm going to have Ann answer that.
Yeah.
Yes, and the intent is to drill them approximately 200 feet east of the section line or the lease line.
Okay, so
So not down the section line, but just off that.
you said east, you meant 200 feet west of the line?
I'm sorry, yes, 200 feet west of the section line. So my map says FEL from east line.
From
but
east
yeah,
line, yep. Okay, just wanted to make sure that was intended. Thank you.
absolutely.
Jeremy, on Exhibit 8, you're showing 20% recovery factor. In your original oil in place, is that just out of the Three Forks?
That's just the Three Forks.
And you don't have, 14 wells in the Three Forks. Do you believe that the original Middle Bakken wells are draining the Three Forks also?
No, what we've tried to represent is that the numbers are higher because of the 2560s for the acreage in the calculation.
Okay, but you're not gonna recover 20% of the Three Forks if you're not draining it with the Middle Bakken wells, are you?
That's correct. I guess what we're trying to say is that if you look at the full 2560, you understand there's some overlap here, that you would have that potential recoverable, but with the overlap, those will be recovered by other Three Forks wells.
Do you plan other Three Forks wells in the area?
We do. Those are in a separate administrative docket
It's on the administrative docket, sir.
for increased density, 29644 and 29645.
Okay, and are they gonna be north-south wells drilled across the 2560?
That's correct.
Will those be drilled at the same time as these lease line wells?
Yes, they're going to be drilled as a program together.
Are you gonna be able to drill all of them in a 1280 on one pad, or are you gonna need a couple?
We'll have multiple pads.
Any problems with gas capture in the area?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29631. Moving on. Case number 29632. Application of Petro Hunt LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Clear Creek Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit described as sections 27 and 34, Township 152 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize 5 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Petro Hunt LLC. I have one witness in the hearing room, Mr. Mike Lindsay, and I'll call Dan Carson and Jason Stengel. Dan? Jason, you there too? All right, we're live in the hearing room.
All right, good. Thank you.
All right, is Mr. Lindsay your first witness?
Yes, Mike Lindsay, yep.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Mike, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Name is Michael Lindsay. I am a landman with Petro Hunt LLC. Our address is P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota, 58502.
And Mike, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
And are you familiar with the land matters associated with this proposed spacing unit?
Yes.
I'd move the testimony, Mr. Lindsay, be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Mike, why don't you go ahead and take us through your exhibit number 1, identify the spacing unit and your working interest?
Okay, so the spacing unit is a 1280 consisting of sections 27 and 34 of Township 152, Range 96. I have a breakdown of tract by tract for each area in the proposed 1280. I've got a working interest total of Petro Hunt of 71%, a little over 71%. And there was one little error on that tract 1, the northeast corner of section 27. The net acres is correct. It was just a calculation of the percent is a little bit off. It should read Petro Hunt 74.170312 and XTO with 25.829688. And that's just for tract 1.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for Mr. Lindsay. I'd offer the land exhibit number 1.
The exhibit is admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we can move on to Mr. Parson. Can you hear me?
I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Dan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address? You still there, Dan?
Disconnected. This light was on, but now it's off.
All right, well, that's unfortunate. Mr. Examiner, can I check?
Yeah.
Call him again.
Go ahead, call him back.
He didn't want to answer the question.
That's a pretty easy one. Hey, Dan, are you there? Jason, you too? All right, we lost you for a second. We're back on live, so.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Parson, you did respond to being sworn in, so I,
Yeah, Dan, it got disconnected or cut off, so if you can go ahead and state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address.
Sure. My name is Dan Carson. I work for Petrohunt LLC. I am a senior geologist, and we are at 617th Street, Suite 2550 South, Denver, Colorado, 80202.
And Dan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes,
And you're familiar with the geology underlying this proposed spacing unit?
definitely.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Carson be received as that of an expert.
the testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Dan, why don't you go ahead and take us through exhibit number 2, just describe the structure underlying the spacing unit and then your proposed development plan?
Certainly. As Mike mentioned earlier in the index map, what we're looking at here is a map of Township 152, 96, and sections 27 and 34 outlined in green. Underline all that are contours, which are from the top up the Bakken. Those are 20-foot contours showing the structure dipping to the south. Within the outlined green proposed 1280 unit, you see a number of existing well bores that are solid and kind of thin in the background there. And then overlying those, you see 5 north-south dash well bores. Those are proposed wells to be put in that 1280 unit, 3 of those being shown as potential Middle Bakken wells, 2 of those being shown as potential First Bench Three Forks wells.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 3, if you could take us through your type log.
Certainly. What we're looking at here is a type log of the WISNIS A27-13 that is in section 27 of this unit. Shown in it are the lodgepole, Upper Bakken, Middle Bakken, Lower Bakken, and Three Forks formation. In this particular area, the Middle Bakken is approximately 44 feet thick, and the First Bench of the Three Forks is approximately 35 feet thick. The Middle Bakken and the Three Forks will be our target zones for these wells.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for Mr. Carson, and I'd offer exhibits 2 and 3.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Dan, this is Bruce Hicks. Kind of hard to read or see your numbers, see your colors in 27 and 34. Is there a combination of Middle Bakken and Three Forks First Bench in existing wells?
Yes, that's exactly right, Bruce. And it is difficult to see. You're correct. The pink thin lines are the First Bench Three Forks wells, and the thin brown lines are the Middle Bakken wells that already exist in those units.
Okay, and Well, I'll just wait for my next question. Thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Stengel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jason, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
I'm Jason Stengel. I'm a reservoir engineer for Petra Hunt LLC. My business address is 2101 Cedar Springs Road, Suite 600, Dallas, Texas 75201.
And Jason, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, and are you familiar with the engineering related matters associated with the spacing unit?
I am. Yes.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. Stengel be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jason, let's start with exhibit number 4. Can you kind of walk us through that and explain what you're showing with this comparison?
Yes, this is the technical reason as to why we want to add or create the spacing unit and drill the additional 5 wells. The top half of the exhibit is a map. The orange box is the unit we're trying to space, and I want to compare that to an offset unit. The blue box is the offset unit we're going to compare to. The general gist is these wells, when we drill them, you can tell that they look like a much older vintage. They are. We drilled those, before we moved to 1280 acre spacing and with much smaller fracs, and we believe we stranded some barrels in the ground. We're comparing that to a much more modern unit, or a much more developed unit to the southwest. They had original infill drilling, or the original drilling to begin with, and they came in and drilled 6 new wells to finish it out, and you can see the incremental improvement. So that's the relation between the 2 units. The offset's right next to it. If you look to the bottom half of the exhibit, it's a log rate versus cume plot. The orange, again, is the unit we're trying to space, and the blue is the offset unit, the rate versus the cume. So if you look at the orange, you can see, the multiple rounds of drilling, original drilling that we did with those multiple peaks. And once we finished drilling it, you can see the nice steady decline. Just using a straight line analysis, our unit projects to around 3.5 million barrels plus or minus. If you look at the blue line, again highlighting that offset unit that we're comparing to, they also had multiple rounds of infill drilling associated with those first 2 peaks. That third peak is the 6 new wells they had drilled, and with large modern fracs, and it straight line projects to around 5.5 million barrels. So that looks like we, with the older technology, we left about 2 million barrels in the ground, and that's why we're asking for the 5, the spacing and the 5 additional wells.
Sure. Let's move on to exhibit number 5 then, the reservoir data.
Yeah, these are the reservoir parameters describing the area. The lithology is a dolomitic siltstone, bottom hole temperature of 260 degrees, oil gravity of 42, gas gravity of 0.89, GOR of 2,000. The spacing unit is 1,280 acres. As Dan alluded to earlier, the Bakken's 44 foot thick in this area, and Three Forks is about 35 feet thick. Off the logs, the average porosity is 8%. With all that said, it calculated a water saturation of 57%, and using the standard correlation, 2.3 barrels to barrels. With that said, the estimated oil in place is 11.7 million barrels and then, as I mentioned earlier, we're using 5 wells to chase 2 million barrels, so 400,000 barrels per well is the estimated ultimate recovery, and that's a recovery factor of 3.4%.
Okay. Let's move on to the economics, exhibit 6.
Yes. So for these wells, for the economics, The initial production rate I've modeled at 1,200 barrels a day, again with a GOR of 2,000 cubic feet to barrels. The ultimate recovery, 400,000 barrels, as mentioned. Our projected well cost is unfortunately $10.4 million. Costs have escalated recently. Our lease operating expenses are estimated at $20,000 a month. Our royalty burden in this area is 14.5%. I used $80 flat NYMEX and $4 flat gas. All that calculates to a 2.3-year payout, 1.77 to 1 return on investment, and a 29% rate of return. So these wells are commercial.
Sure. So Jason, in your opinion, would the proposed 1280, is that going to prevent waste, prevent drilling of unnecessary wells, and protect relative rights?
Yes.
With no further questions, I'd offer exhibits 4 through 6 in the gas capture affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jason, looking at both exhibits 4 and 3, really, that offset unit you're comparing your production to, you can see the very top of it on exhibit 3, and it does look like that spacing unit included Three Forks second bench wells as well.
Yes, I think so.
Yep. But it would appear to be based on the exhibit here. I guess, is there any intent or any consideration for the contribution of the TF2? Is there any significant contribution to the curves you see on Exhibit 4, or are those underperforming the other Three Forks wells?
Our approach is for total fluid and proppant volumes more so than, necessarily where the wells are located. We have seen on these much larger frac jobs much higher water cuts. And so that tells, even in Clear Creek and Charleston and some of the core areas, the water cuts are significantly higher. And what that tells us is our fracs are going down and going up much higher, so you're tapping into more of that water. So we don't think you need to put a well in the second bench Three Forks to capture that oil. And our approach is more, like I said, fluid and proppant volumes more so than where the wells are located. If you get enough fluid and proppant in the DSU, you'll get the barrels out.
Okay, so essentially just a difference in completion technologies is attributing, or you're attributing the differential almost entirely to the completion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, looking at your Exhibit 2, the producing wells that exist out there, are they going to continue to produce?
Yes, they will.
What's the stage distance that you plan to stay away from those existing wells so you don't frack into them?
Ideally, we would frack into them and we'll clean them out and their production will be uplifted. That final curve, if you look at going back, looking at Exhibit 4, you have, looking at the offset, that's a total DSU production chart. Not all that new oil is coming out of new wells. It's going to be some combination of the new wells and the old wells being re-stimulated.
Okay, well,
So ideally, everything will get properly fracked, clean it all out, and get it produced.
okay, let me rephrase the question. How, you're going to be drilling across some laterals in the same zone, right?
Yes.
So how far do you plan to stay away with your frac stages away from those existing wells when you're drilling right across them?
I don't think we're going to be trying to avoid it like that. I think we're just going to frack them the way we normally would if it were, say, a virgin well or a virgin area.
Okay. How do you frac protect those existing wells? What are you going to do?
I can't tell you the details. I'll have to ask our operations engineer. But we do, I know we soft set it. I don't know if we do much more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29632. Moving on. Case number 29633. Application of SEG Williston LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit described as Sections 1 and 12, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montrose County, ND, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to November. Case number 29634. Application of SEG Williston LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560-acre space unit described as Sections 2, 3, 10, and 11, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montrose County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to November. Case number 29635. Application of Burlington Resources Oil and Gas Co. LP for an order allowing the Saddle Jerome 44-9 MBH ULW well, file number 37814, with a portion of the heel of the lateral potentially not completely isolated by cement located in Section 9, Township 149 North, Range 96 West, to be completed on a spacing unit described as Sections 15, 16, 21, and 22, Township 149 North, Range 96 West, North Fork Field, McKenzie County, ND, and to produce as an exception to the applicable field rules, permit conditions or other well location restrictions, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Burlington Resources Oil and Gas Company, LP. I intend to call 2 witnesses on this case, Mark Salvi on land and Jake Morissette as an engineer. I'll call them now. Hey, good. If you got your computer on, can you turn that off? There's some feedback. Is Jake there as well? All right. We're live in the hearing room.
Great.
All right. Mr. Salvi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah.
Mark, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yeah, my name is Mark Salvi. I'm employed by Conoco Phillips Company as a senior land negotiator, and our business address is 935 North Eldridge Parkway, Houston, Texas 77007.
And Mark, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes,
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
yes,
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Selby be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Mark, let's just go ahead and go through your land exhibits. Just with the first exhibit, can you identify the spacing unit for the well at issue and then the adjoining properties that may be impacted?
yes. So the well we're expecting today is the Saddle Jerome 44-9 MDH Uniline well. It is currently spaced as 2560 in Township 149 North, Range 96 West, Sections 15, 16, 21, and 22.
And additional sections impacted by this well are the 2 DSUs to the north, sections 3 and 10 and 4 and 9 that Burlington also operates.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to the next exhibit, L2. Just kind of take us through ownership in those, in the impacted adjoining spacing units as well as this unit.
Okay. Burlington has approximately 47% working interest in the 2560 that Sal Jerome unit is based, or Sal Jerome well is based on. And in the two units to the north, we have approximately
45% working interest in sections 4 and 9 and 49% working interest in sections 3 and 10.
Okay. And Mark, you understand on exception location cases, there's a rule 430203, 18.1 that requires that you give notice to like lessees, working interest owners, unleased mineral owners, and any of Burlington's lessors in the adjoining property that may be impacted. Did you do that in this case with the assistance of counsel?
Yes, we should notice in this case all working interest owners owners in section 3, 4, 9.
You kind of cut out there. Can you repeat that?
Yes, we sent notice in this case to all interested parties in section 3, 4, 9.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Salvia. I'd offer L1 and L2.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Mr. Morissette, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Jake, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Jake Morissette, employed by Conoco Phillips as a junior drilling engineer, and my work address is 925 North Parkway, Houston, Texas, 77079.
Jake, have you previously testified before this commission?
No, I have not.
Can you just go ahead and briefly take us through your educational background and relevant work experience?
Yes, so I graduated in 2012 from Kansas State with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, and have been employed with Conoco Phillips since 2013 as a wells engineer, field of intervention engineering, completion on site, and then the last 4 years been a drilling engineer.
Okay. And Jake, were you involved in the drilling of this Saddle Butte well, or Saddle Jerome well, excuse me?
I was the engineer.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Morissette be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jake, let's start with exhibit number E1. Can you kind of walk us through that exhibit and explain what happened with the drilling of this well?
Yes, so we had drilled our intermediate hole to the landing point of the curve, and we were in the process of running our 7-inch casing. We got the 7-inch casing down into the middle Bakken, where it became completely stuck and packed off. From there, we ran a free point, found that we were 90% free at 10,655 feet measured up, and opted to land out casing from there. Given that we didn't know what the if we were going to be able to get circulation below that point, we perfed there and pumped the primary intermediate cement job through the perf at 10,655. At which point we ran our CBL and found cement from 10,655 up 6542. The cement did not fall beyond the 10,655. In another attempt to try to get the 7-inch shoe isolated, we spot a 27.7 shoe and try to squeeze it away, but it helps sell it at a 15.0 pound per gallon equivalent
mud rate, which was 2680 psi applied at surface with a 10-pound gallon brine. We drilled out the shoe we thought over the the plug we thought over the shoe, and tractored a CBL down, and found that there was basically no cement between the shoe and our perfs at 10655. So that pretty well covers our intermediate operations. From there, we gained approval to go ahead and drill the production lateral. So that will take us to Exhibit E2. So we drilled our 6-inch hole to TD and ran our 4.5-inch liner as planned. Set the liner hanger and cemented the liner, and then set the pack off. We had 30 barrels of good cement that we had circulated surface after the lateral cement job, and a good pressure test to about 4,000 psi for 30 minutes on that liner top with the rig.
Okay,
So that takes us through the operation.
sure. And then let's move on then to E3, kind of take us through that aerial view and describe what we're looking at now with this well.
Yep. So, at the first point to the north, the 10655, that is where we first and pumped our primary cement job.
That's about 56 feet from the south line. You've got the section line, which is about 230 feet south of our surface location, 10,805 measured depth. The next point down is going to be our 150-foot setback, which is 380 feet southing. And at 11,156 feet, we have our Upper Bakken shale top, or the top of our pool. And then at 11,232, we have where we were able to get our 7-inch shoe, which was about 312 feet from the north line.
Okay. And then let's move on to the next E4, the well, and I guess in relation to some of the other wells.
Yep, so this is just a summary with our other offset wells there. I don't have anything major to point out here, just basically I was looking to show everybody the surroundings.
In Burlington Resources, the operator of each of these other wells?
Yes.
Okay. And let's move on to the plan view. You've got Exhibit E5.
Yeah, so nothing much more to add here, just point out there's kind of where we're at with the depth and where everything happened at. The sun being right below the upper Bakken top, I think the main thing to point out there.
Okay. And then let's move on to your last exhibit, E6, and kind of take us through what your proposal is with respect to completing and producing the well.
Okay, so we believe that we have the 4.5-inch has been isolated by the cement job with the 35 barrels of cement surface and the good pressure test. So what we believe would be the best course of action is to incorporate an additional setback from the 7-inch shoe, and in the spirit of the 150-foot setback, to include an additional 150-foot setback from the 7-inch shoe for a first perf. So basically that would put the 7-inch shoe 312 feet from the north line, and a first perf at 462 from the north line.
Okay. So, Jake, in your opinion, if the commission were to, I guess, approve this proposal, allow you to complete the well in this manner and produce it, would that protect the correlative rights of all of the owners involved?
Given the isolation of the primary cement on the 4.5, I believe so, but I can't speak personally to the
the completion side of it.
Sure. If you are allowed to complete it and produce it, then obviously, in your opinion, would that prevent the drilling of an unnecessary well and also prevent waste?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Morissette, and I would offer all of the engineering exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jake, you said Burlington testified that they operate 4, 9, and 3 and 10?
Yeah.
And are there additional wells planned in the east half of 4 and 9?
East half of 4 and 9. I believe all of the wells that we had planned were drilled on this pad.
The Curtis MBH and the Curtis TFH. I believe the unit line well that went through 3 and 4 was the Burton 14-10 TFH ULW. So I believe they're all already there.
So the wells in east half of 4 and 9 and the section line well between 3, 4, 9, and 10, they've all been drilled?
Yep.
Are they all on the same pad? No, I see the lease line well was drilled already from a well in section 10.
Yeah, I can't speak if they're on the same pad.
So the wells, the new wells in the east half of 4 and 9, were they drilled from the same pad that this lease line well is on?
That is correct. The Curtis 44-9 MBH and the Curtis 44-9 TFH were on the same pad that we drilled with the Saddle Jerome 44-9 MBH ULW.
And those wells have not been completed yet?
No.
Do you know what the completion design is for those wells in the east half of 4 and 9, as far as where their first perforation's gonna be?
I don't believe that we picked up first perforation, but if need be, we can consider that.
Yeah, if you could,
I believe it was just, I believe as designed, it was going to be on the section line for the Curtis MBH and the Curtis TFH.
if you could supplement the record with the proposed first perforations for those wells in the east half of 4 and 9. And also, I assume there's some additional wells in the east half of 16 and 21 that were drilled off this pad?
Could you repeat that?
So on this, how many wells are in this current batch that you've drilled with the Saddle Jerome well?
6 wells.
And how many are going north?
There's 2 wells going north, the 2 reference Curtis wells, and that's going to be in the east half.
4 and 9, and then we had going south. We had 4 wells. We had 3 of those were in 15 and 21, and one of them was in 16-22.
16 and 21?
3 of them were in 15 and 21, and then one of of them was 1622. I'm looking at this.
Yeah,
Oh, that.
yeah. It's 60 and 21, 16 and 22. It's Mark Valley.
If I could get a proposed first perforation in the wells in the east half of 409 and the east half of 16 and 21.
Yes.
The Saddle Jerome well that targeted the Middle Bakken.
Yes, the well in question. This is a Middle Bakken well.
And does Burlington have an objection to inclusion of the surveys from those other wells that are in the east half of 409 and the east half of 16 and 21
No objection.
and their proposed target?
No objection.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I guess along the lines of what Mark was asking for, it might be just beneficial if you, in that supplemental, if you include something like your aerial exhibit E4 that depicts all the wells drilled off that pad and the wells in the general area and where their first perforation or take points, whatever you want to call that, would be in and around this Jerome well. When you were discussing your exhibit E1, you mentioned multiple CBLs that had been run. Can you give me the dates that those CBLs were run on?
I don't have that handy, but I can get it for you.
It looks like a number of them haven't been submitted through the normal digital logs inbox. I think I have them all through our field inspection staff, but and I'll pass them along. But if you can make sure that any of those CBLs that were run get submitted through digital logs at nd.gov.
Yes, sir.
And how many logs total? Was it 3?
It was 2 on the DL.
I think I've got a log on the 22nd, a log on the 26th, and then the one that we have on file appears to have been run on October 14th instead of, apologies, here, hold on, July 26th and July 22nd for those first 2 logs.
That sounds right.
Okay, and then another ultrasonic log that was run October 14th?
Okay. Yeah, that was the use it for the 7-inch.
Okay. Have you run
Yeah,
sorry, say that again?
Yeah, I don't have anything. Go ahead.
Okay, have you run a bond log on your liner at all?
No, we have not.
Can you also supply a supplemental exhibit that would provide frac information, fracture simulation information, frac half length, direction, and that type of exhibit for what you expect to happen with your stimulations in the area?
Yeah.
And I guess during this process, were you in contact with our field staff?
We were, yeah.
Okay.
It was
then-
full.
And I guess the one final thing, when you attempted to squeeze the shoe, you didn't get any rate at all? It was plugged off?
No, so we fought with we fought the cement with a 2 7/8 Stinger, pulled up above it, and then pressured up promptly to 15 pounds per gallon, or 2680. So there was really no indication at all.
Okay, so no rate whatsoever at the shoe.
Nope.
When you drilled out after the cement job that was pumped through your perfs, did you see any cement in the wellbore below the perforation depths?
I don't believe so.
So at this point, there's really no indication that there was cement placed between the perfs and the shoe. All the cement appears to have gone out the perfs and up.
That is what it appears, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Jake, this is Lynn Helms. For the record, if you could just give us a little more information from your Exhibit E2 as to why the 35 barrels of good cement to surface, how that happens, and why that and that pressure test indicate a good cement job on the liner. So how do you end up with 35 barrels of good cement at the surface?
So basically, we pump our cement job through the drill pipe down the 4.5 inch liner. At which point we unsting the drill pipe, and then we circulate the excess that would be at the 4.5 inch liner top out of the hole, and we ended up with 35 barrels of cement back. And then once we get that cement circulated out, we set the pack off and we do a pressure test. Basically, it's the entire wellbore from the wellhead in the 7-inch casing to the 4.5 inch liner hanger pack off all the way down the 4.5 inch casing.
Okay, thank you.
Jake, one more request for supplemental information. Could you also provide the cement job report for both the cement job that was pumped on the 7-inch and the cement job that was pumped on the shoe, or on the 4.5 inch liner, please?
Sure.
Are there any further questions from staff? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, there were several requests for supplements. I guess what kind of time frame you think we need? For
Yeah, I need to, Jake, all of the supplemental information, would 2 weeks be sufficient?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, 2 weeks?
Okay, 2 weeks, that puts us at Wednesday, November 9th, if I'm correct. So the record will remain open for supplements until Wednesday, November 9th. Anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
All right, and that will conclude the hearing in case number 29635. The time is 10:05 a.m. Why don't we take a quick break here?
Okay.
Right. We are on the record in case number 29636. Application of Oventive USA Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Lone Butte and/or Ranch Creek Bakken pools to establish a stand-up 1920 acre space unit described as Section 31, Township 147 North, Range 98 West, and Section 6 and 7, Township 146 North, Range 98 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oventive USA, Inc. I have 3 witnesses testifying. Mr. Ashley Ellison on land is present in the hearing room. And then I will also have George Jennings and Chris Wall, and they both should be on the line right now.
All right. And is Mr. Ellison your first witness?
Yes, he is.
Mr. Ellison, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir. Ashley, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Ashley Ellison. I'm employed by Oventive Inc., Oventive USA Inc., I guess. And I'm a senior landman for 'em, a land negotiator, I guess. And my business address is 4 Waterway Square Place, Suite 100, Woodlands, Texas. Well, you want the zip code?
That's fine. Have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
And did you have your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with the land matters associated with this proposed spacing unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Ellison be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Ashley, let's go through the land exhibits. If we can just start with that regional map and take us through.
Sure. Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map. We're located south of the river, kind of the southern border of 14798, northern border of 14698.
Let's move on then to the location map, and if I can have you identify the proposed 1920 we're discussing.
Yes, sir. The proposed 1920 would be comprised of sections 6 and 7 of 14698, and then we'd be drilling south to north, and then into section 31 of 14798.
And then let's move on to L3, if you could take us through your working interest in the proposed 1920 and the underlying
Sure.
lands.
So I'll start from the middle here, I suppose. Section 6 and 7, we have a working interest of 43.1%. And the plan, we have an agreement with Burlington. Burlington owns 100% of the minerals in section 31, so the northern section. So we have a lease. We're working out a lease agreement with them. They have agreed to lease. But if you go back up to the top in the 1920, that's why this Oventive working interest is such a sad number. It does not include the full 640. It's slightly under 640 acres, but 622 net acres of the Burlington section. So once you add that in, we'll have around a 62% working interest.
And then I've also included, we don't have it labeled as an exhibit, but in your packet, there's a letter from ConocoPhillips. I think it was probably filed with the commission, but I'm not certain. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir. So this letter is a letter of support from ConocoPhillips, Burlington Resources, that supports the 1920. They value the development of their minerals in Section 31.
Okay. That's all of the questions I have for Mr. Ellison. At this time, I'd offer the land exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Ashley, do you know who owns the mineral interest in section 30?
Yes, sir. that is so there's a suspended federal lease in section 30 that has been suspended for 10 years. It's owned by Oasis, now Cord. And Cord does not really have any development in this township. We've not discussed any of this with Cord, so I don't know what their development plans are, but they've owned that lease. I guess I don't know how long exactly they've owned the lease, but they don't necessarily need to do anything with Section 30 as the lease is suspended. I dug into why it is suspended, and at one point, a predecessor attempted to get a permit on the, I think it's grasslands for the national grasslands in Section 30, and that permit was not approved, so they simply said they were suspended until the permit is approved, I guess, and that has been suspended since 2011, I believe.
So the permit that was applied for, was that for sections 30 and 31?
I do not know the permit. You can't. I could not find the specifics of the permit. It just said a specific well that was applied for. I don't know if it was a horizontal or a vertical well in 2011.
So currently, sections 19 and 20 are laid on 1280,
That's correct, sir.
and if section 31 is developed with section 6 and 7, what's going to happen to section 30?
So it could be Sinclair has 6 laydowns in that township. So you could develop section 30 from section 25 to the west as a laydown as well. There's no development in section 25.
Sections 25 and 36 are currently a stand-up 1280, so you take 25 and put it with 30, then what happens to 36?
I have, you could develop section 36 as a laydown.
Then we just move further to the west, then what happens to section 26?
As a landman, I would love 100% working interest in all of these sections of land and then be able to develop them however, in the best manner appropriate. However, we're all us operators are working with acreage that we're cobbling together as we go. In a perfect world, it would be nice to lay it out. It's just an organic process. So we would like to develop this land sooner rather than later, and I have no idea when Section 30 or Section 25 might be developed in the future.
Has Ovintiv looked at an overall spacing pattern in this area?
All we've looked at is the acreage that we own interest in. We would like to develop that acreage. And Conoco would like us to develop their acreage in Section 31.
So the suspended lease that you talked about in section 30 and this apparent permit that was applied for, is that, would you be able to determine what space unit that permit was for?
I can look to see what Section 30 is presently spaced at.
Well, it's presently spaced with 31.
Sure. So, and if that's the case, if we are attempting to encourage development in the area. There's been no permits from Cord or Oasis since they've owned this Section 30. And XTO has no plans to develop Section 31 on their own, which is why they're leasing the minerals to us, I guess. So, from my standpoint, sections are respaced fairly frequently in the basin. And whomever would like to develop Section 25 and Section 30, Section 36 in that corner has every ability to join you guys and respace that area at that time, I suppose.
The dilemma the commission has is that by doing these one-offs, it increases the likelihood that something could get stranded as a 640-acre development unit, and that's obviously not high on anybody's priority.
Sure. It's just tough to do because you could continue to go out west as you develop. Development is just an organic process, and many things lead to why you would need to drill a 1920, 1280. Surface issues could hamper something further west. I know you get into the national park over there. Bird in hand is, I guess, better than two birds in the bush, so to speak. We would like to develop this area, and in the future, it presently does not strand Section 30. You can drill it as a laydown 1280, and there's ample examples of laydown 1280s in that township.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ashley, you made the comment that sections are regularly reassigned in the Bakken. I would disagree that in total, but what we have seen is a lot of redesignation of lease line wells.
Sure.
And what the commission tried to do is set up uniform spacing throughout this Bakken, so we had energy corridors and wellheads all along certain
Sure.
corridors where the industry would have traffic and stay off of the residents' roads. And when we start overlapping and changing that direction from stand-up to lay-down, it kind of throws all that in a mix and doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore.
Sure.
So what the commission has tried to do is set up stand-up 1280s throughout almost all the Bakken, and we did that 12 years ago with an order. So it was very uniform, and we've had very few wells, or I should say spacing units redesignated, but we have had 2 miles going to 3 mile laterals.
Sure.
And in that case, we like to keep those 3 mile laterals all in the same township. So you would have 2 3 mile laterals, stand up, so to speak,
Sure.
all in the same township. And in this case, we're overlapping the township. And at some point, we're going to hit the correction line, and it really causes issues.
Sure. I understand
when
the
we have that
correction line issue.
So that's,
Yep.
that's what the commission likes to do, is to set these up, and instead of overlapping it, we would have like 1930 and 31, and so forth.
Sure.
Sometimes it doesn't fit, but
Sure.
we've had a lot of operators go in and overlap existing wells perpendicular. So to say 1930 and 31 doesn't work because you have a laydown doesn't necessarily mean that's true. So that's what the commission is looking at. When we start overlapping this stuff, we get into kind of paint ourselves into a corner that we wish we had never went in.
Sure. And I completely understand that. From an operator side, it's harder to do simply because you don't own all of the acreage.
Right, but that's what you're doing is
Sure.
you don't own Section 30 and you're gonna lease it.
Sorry, section 31.
31.
Yep.
And you could do the same thing. I mean, you could try to lease 30, or, I understand that that's maybe not drillable right now, but
Sure,
I
yes.
just wanted you to get the background on everything. When
No,
you're
I
talking
understand.
about section 30, you said that it's a federal suspended lease. Is it the entire section?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's all federal. Is it one lease or is it several?
It's a one lease, but it has other acreage in the kind of the same area of the Little Missouri National Grassland.
Okay, so it doesn't extend into 25 then?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, we can move on to the next witness. Mr. Jennings, are you on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
George, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yeah, my name is George Jennings. I work at Oventive USA Incorporated as a geologist. And Oventive is located, or my office is located at 4 Waterway Square Place, The Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
And George, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I did.
And are you familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing unit?
I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Jennings be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And George, let's start with G1. Can you describe the structure for us?
Yeah, so this is a structure map with 20-foot contour intervals. On the south side of section 7, the structure goes from -8, 6, 50 TBD sub C up to on the north side of section 31 to about -8, 6, 90. And you can see on here I've shown where the type log that we'll see on the next exhibit is located, and highlighted the proposed increase in density unit.
Great. Let's move on to G2, that type log.
Yeah, so this is the Watson Woody 1 type log, located just to the west of the unit in question, just to the west of section 7 there. And on the left track of the type log, we have our gamma ray shaded with yellow and gray. And in the center of the center track, we have our resistivity, shallow and deep resistivity curves. And on the right side of the right track, we have our neutron and density logs. I've highlighted the various formations, and we are proposing to drill a lateral in the middle Bakken.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for Mr. Jennings that offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, move on to your third witness, I believe Chris Wall. Are you on the line?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Chris, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Chris Wall. I work for Oventive USA Incorporated as a senior reservoir engineer. Address is 4 Waterway Square Place, The Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
Chris, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes.
Had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, and you're familiar with the engineering matters associated with this spacing unit?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Wall be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Chris, let's start with E1. Can you describe how you'd propose to develop the spacing unit?
Yes. Exhibit E1 is a plat showing a 4-well development in sections 6 and 7 of 14698, and then section 31 of 14798.
Okay. And moving on to E2, how would you propose to drill and complete these wells?
Each lateral will be 15,000 feet approximately in length, drilled with a 7 7/8 inch hole to TD, with setting 5.5 inch casing cemented to the shoe of the intermediate casing set at approximately 6,300 feet, which will also be cemented to surface.
And E3, what do the reservoir data and economics look like?
Okay. So the thickness out here is approximately 48 feet. We have 7.5% porosity and a water saturation of about 25%. There is 24 million barrels in place across 1,920 acres, and a four-well development should recover roughly 10% of those reserves. The wells we're predicting to start with an IP of roughly 1,100 barrels per day, and using a $55 price tag and an investment of nearly $20 million per well, or sorry, excuse me, $8 million per well, you get a return on investment of 2.6 to 1.
Okay. And Chris, in your opinion, would the proposed spacing unit with this development, would that prevent waste, protect relative rights, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions that offer the engineering exhibits, including the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are submitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Chris, the 4 wells, are they all gonna be drilled from a single pad?
We hope to be able to do that. Right now, we have set up to do one pad and actually drill 3 wells in 2 different sections off of that one. We're hoping to work out an agreement that we can enlarge that pad at a later date to drill the remainder of the wells.
And where's that first pad?
It's, I believe it's in the northeast corner of section, what would that be? The section south of section, excuse me, it would be section 18 of 146, 98.
In the northeast quarter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, this is Bruce Hicks. You indicated that that would drill 2 different spacing units, is that right?
Actually, 3 different spacing units. The initial pad, yes.
Okay, and are the other 2 spacing units 1920s?
Only the south facing is we're hoping to space as a 1920. We had that hearing in August. And then the one, we have a DSU adjacent to the east. It is a 10K stand-up.
When's your anticipated spud?
Right now, we currently have our spud date in January, middle of January.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Yes, was there anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, nothing further, thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29636. Moving on.
Thank you, guys.
Case number 29637, application of Hessbakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Robinson Lake and/or Sanishbakken pools to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 13 and 24 at Township 154 North, Range 93 West, and sections 18 and 19, Township 154 North, Range 92 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is dismissed. Case number 29638, application of Hessbakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rossbakken pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre space unit described as section 17, 18, 19, and 20, Township 156 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hessbakken Investments 2 LLC. I'll have 3 witnesses testifying in this case and the next case. And it'll be Jaden Emerson, Motun Akinpelu, and Aisha Keshimir. Wade Mann. You guys all there, Jaden?
Yes, we are, Wade. Jaden, Aisha, and Motun.
All right.
All right, Jaden, we'll start with you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jaden, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Jaden Emerson. I'm employed by Hess Corporation as a senior land negotiator with a business address of 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And Jaden, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
And are you familiar with the land matters associated with the spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Emerson be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jaden, let's start with your exhibit number 1. If I can have you identify the spacing units.
Sure. Exhibit 1 is a location map of Township 156 North, Range 91 West, in the Rock Bakken Pool. Section 18 and 19 outlined in blue is an existing underlying Hess-operated stand-up 1280 unit. Section 17 and 20 is an existing Hess-operated stand-up 1280 outlined in blue as well. The green boundary indicates the requested spacing, 2560 spacing, encompassing the two underlying stand-up 1280s, section 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit number 2.
Exhibit 2 sets forth the leasehold working interest of the underlying spacing units, which comprise the requested 2560. Section 18 and 19 is Hess's R.S. Nelson Farm CSU, in which Hess owns 70%, Burlington owns 14%, Continental owns 13%, and others own 3%. Section 17 and 20 is the Hess-operated R.S. Flickertail DSU, in which Hess owns 43%, Vitesse owns 20%, Continental owns 12%, Conoco owns 12%, and others own 13%. In the overlapping 2560 for the lease line well spacing, R.S. Nelson Farms LE, Hess owns 56%, Continental owns 13%, Vitesse owns 10%, Burlington owns 7%, and Conoco owns 6%, and others own 8%.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Emerson. I'd offer the land exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Akinpelu. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Motoon, can I have you state your name, by whom you are employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Motun Akinpelu. I am currently employed as an operations geologist for Hess Corporation, located at 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas, zip code 77010.
And Motoon, let's see. Have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you're familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Akinpelu be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Yeah, and Motoon, let's start with your exhibit number 3, if you can describe the structure for us.
Exactly. So Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Middle Bakken, the contour interval of 50 feet, dipping to the southwest over the existing DSU outlined in blue and the requested 2560 outlined in green. The A to A prime line is for the photographic cross section used in the next exhibit, Exhibit 4.
Okay, let's move on to that exhibit 4, if you can take us through that cross section.
Exhibit 4 is a stratigraphic cross-section flattened at the top of the Bakken, showing that the formations are laterally continuous between the existing and requested DSUs.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'd offer exhibits 3 and 4.
Exhibits 3 and 4 are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Multoon, just a note real quick. On your exhibit 3, your cross-section line, 8A prime, the center well on that looks like it's pointing at the bottom hole location for the well instead of the surface hole location for the well. Just something to pay attention to for future exhibits. It's better if it's located at the surface location, so. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Keshemir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Aisha Kashmir, employed by Hess Corporation as a reservoir engineer, located at 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And Aisha, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And you're familiar with engineering-related matters associated with these spacing units?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Keshemir be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Aisha, let's start with your exhibit number 5, if you can tell us how you intend to develop the spacing unit.
Sure. Exhibit 5 shows the proposed 2560 development for section 1718 and section 1920. The bold dashed line is the proposed well, and this well will be drilled in the Middle Bakken formation.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit number 6. Can you summarize your reservoir data and economics?
Sure. Exhibit 6 shows the reservoir and economic summary for a single Middle Bakken well in a sky area. The expected EUR is around 700,000 with 1.6% recovery factor. Economics were run at 62 barrels WTI flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV is around 8 million with 58% rate of return.
Okay. And Aisha, in your opinion, would this spacing and lease line well protect relative rights and prevent waste?
Yes.
No further questions. I would offer exhibits 5, 6, and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Aisha, how far off the section line is this well proposed?
It's around 150 feet.
150?
150, yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
Not in this case. Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29638. Moving on. Case number 29639. Application of Hess Bakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Beaver Lodge Bakken Pool, Williams County, ND, to establish 2 overlapping laydown 1280-acre spacing units described as sections 3 and 4 and sections 9 and 10, Township 156 North, Range 95 West, and authorize 7 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit, and establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit described as sections 3, 4, 9, and 10, Township 156 North, Range 95 West, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hess Bakken Investments 2 LLC. And same 3 witnesses.
All right, we'll begin with Mr. Emerson. Mr. Emerson, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jaden, let's start with your exhibit number 1. If you can go ahead and identify the proposed spacing units that you're looking at in this case.
Sure. Exhibit 1 is a location map of Township 156 North, Range 95 West, in the Beaver Lodge Bakken Pool. Indicated by the blue outlines are 2 existing Hess-operated stand-up 1280 units, one comprised of section 4 and 9, the other comprised of section 3 and 10. Outlined in yellow is the requested laydown 1280 spacing, comprised of section 3 and 4, the first requested 1280 laydown, and the second comprised of section 9 and 10. The third requested spacing unit is outlined in green and encompasses the 2 stand-up 1280s and comprises section 3, 4, 9, and 10.
Okay. And let's move on to exhibit 2A.
Exhibit 2A sets forth the estimated leasehold working interest of the underlying existing stand-up 1280 unit and the requested laydown 1280 spacing. Indicated in blue, section 4 and 9 is Hess's DL Sabor stand-up 1280 PSU, in which Hess owns 84% and XDO owns 16%. Section 3 and 10 indicated in yellow is Hess's DL Wallen-Tinson DSU, in which Hess owns 59%, XDO owns 25%, Continental owns 11%, and others own 5%. And the requested laydown comprised of section 3 and 4, the BL 4-3 DSU. Hess owns 71%, XDO owns 21%, Continental owns 5%, and others own 3%.
Okay, and then 2B.
Yes, Exhibit 2B sets forth the working interest in the section 4, 9, 3, and 10, which I stated in Exhibit 2A. So I'll just state the overlapping requested spacing in it for sections 9 and 10, which Beal Herschel has owned 71%, XDO owns 21%, and Continental owns 5%, and others own 3% in the requested laydown 1280 comprised sections 9 and 10.
Sure. And then 2C.
2C sets forth the estimated leasehold working interest in the requested 2560 spacing, which encompass the existing stand-up 1280s, which I've stated interest for in Exhibit 2A. The BL Sabor LS DSU encompasses section 3, 4, 9, and 10, in which Hess owns 71%, XTO owns 21%, Continental owns 5%, and others own 3%.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Emerson. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jaden, I guess, why the request to lay him down? To lay the two 1280s down instead of continue operating on the stand-up 1280s?
Engineering can testify in detail on that, but from what I have been informed is that because of the depletion from the wells in the Beaver Lodge Madison unit, the Madison depletion issues, Aisha can discuss that in detail.
Okay.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Akinpelu. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Motoon, can you take us through your exhibit number 3 and the structure underlying the proposed spacing units?
Sure. So the Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the Middle Bakken with the contour interval is 50 feet, showing the formation dipping to the southeast at the top of the eastern anticline. The 8 to 8 prime is used in the stratigraphic cross-section on the next page with the formation, with the requested DSUs outlined in yellow and green.
Okay, and let's move on to your exhibit 4, the cross-section.
Exhibit 4 is a stratigraphic cross-section for the 8 to 8 prime line from the previous exhibit, flattened on top of the Bakken, showing that the formation is laterally continuous within the requested DSUs.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'd offer exhibits 3 and 4.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, Ms. Keshmir, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, let's start with exhibit number 5, I guess the northern most laydown. Take us through your proposed development there, and then maybe also address Mr. Suggs' question with respect to why you guys are looking to convert these to laydowns.
Sure. Yeah, Exhibit 5 shows the first proposed 1280 development in Section 3 and 4. The dashed green lines are the proposed wells targeting the Middle Bakken Formation. For the question regarding why we're asking for laydown, as Jaden mentioned, it was mainly because of depletion from the Madison Formation, legacy wells we had. So the reason why we changed our plan is we lost several wells in the last 2 years. Approximately, I think 3 wells were while drilling the vertical section. So to avoid losing wells, we do develop a map, a risk map that we use in our company to look at where we would expect the depletion from the Madison Formation. So the laydown will prevent us from losing wells while drilling in the vertical.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and move on to the next exhibit, moving down to that next laydown. Take us through your development.
Yes, the Exhibit 6 shows the proposed 1280 development for Section 9 and Section 10. The dashed green lines are the proposed wells targeting the Middle Bakken Formation as well.
Okay. And then moving on to exhibit number 7, the proposed 2560 for the lease line well between those laydowns.
Sure. Exhibit 8 shows the result. Exhibit 7 shows the proposed 2560 development from for Section 3 and Section 4 and 9 and 10. The bold dashed line is the proposed well and will be drilled in the Middle Bakken Formation.
Okay. And then let's move on to the reservoir data and economics, exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 shows the reservoir and economic summary for a single Middle Bakken well in Beaver Lodge area. The expected EUR is around 600,000 barrels oil with 1.4% recovery factor. Economics will run at $62 WTI flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV is around $13 million with 80% rate of return.
Okay. And Aisha, in your opinion, would if the spacing's approved in the development, as you've described, would that prevent waste, protect relative rights, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Aisha, if you look at exhibits 5, 6, and 7,
Yes.
on exhibits 5 and 6, the wells are somewhat evenly spaced in the laydown 1280s. And then they're not on exhibit 7. Can you,
Yes, the proposed will be the one in Exhibit 7. That will be the most likely how we're going to be developing this four sections. The Exhibit 6, 5, and 6 it was an approximation just for approximation for the exhibit show how many wells we would have for the pad, but the most likely would be what the development is shown in Exhibit 8.
so what's the reason for the bigger spacing in between 2 wells in each unit?
It's a batches. We will be drilling the whole unit in 3 batches total. So we're starting with the batch in the middle. The one is showing with the lease line. That's going to be our first batch. We'll be starting in January 2024. Then we come back later for either the southern batch or the northern batch. And the spacing is to avoid depletion while coming back to those wells. Or coming back to drill new wells.
And then the lease line well is going to be located how far off the section line?
It's going to be around 80 feet from the section line.
So exhibits 5 and 6 show 1 pad in each spacing unit, but exhibit 7 shows 1 pad in the middle, and then I assume it's be a pad to the north and a pad to the south?
Yeah, we will, like I was saying, it's just an approximate, for approximation only for the pad location. We haven't scoped all, we did a pre-scoping for the area, but we will come back and look at what's the best location for each pad. But most likely we will be drilling those 3 batches and multiple pads. So like I was saying, the first one will be the middle one. That's for sure we will be like building pad, but in the future, we'll see if we can drill the other batches from either the same pad or extend or add a new one. So what's in the exhibit right now is an approximation only.
Okay, thank you.
Aisha, looking, I guess, at Exhibit 7, do you intend to continue producing the 2 stand-up wells after you drill out your horizontal development?
Most likely will be PNA, the 2 wells. Right now they are making around 15 to 17 barrels oil per day. And since we're going to be starting the new wells in about a year and a half, so by the time the plan is most likely to PNA these 2 wells. That's why we're starting with the middle one batch to keep the leases for the 4 sections.
Okay, and then with the intent to potentially plug and abandon those, do you, I guess, what do you plan to do during your completions when you drill across those wellbores in the same formation? You can stand off during your stimulations, or what's the plan?
The plan is to do every standard one, so we will be fracking into this well for sure, and since we're going to be abandoning those 2 wells.
Okay, thank you.
Aisha, this is Bruce. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on what you were talking about with the Madison. If you drilled stand-up wells, they'd probably be drilled from the south, and you have a lot of depletion in the Madison from those existing wells, so you don't want to have collapsed casing, is that correct?
Yes, it's most likely that, and the reason also because we lost 2 wells in the vertical BHA, so that's another reason why we don't want to take the risk and for losing wells.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29639. Case number 29640. Application of Hesbakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Alger and/or Rossbakken pools to establish a stand-up 1920-acre space unit described as the east half of Section 31, the west half of Section 32, Township 157 North, Range 91 West, and Sections 2 and 11, Township 156 North, Range 92 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize 5 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to December. Case number 29230, temporary spacing to develop an oil and/or gas pool discovered by the True Oil LLC, number 31-36 Northern State Well, file number 37495, northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 36, Township 148 North, Range 102 West, McKenzie County, ND. Define the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. This case is continued to November. Case number 29405, application of Oventive Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Sand Creek Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 38-40-acre space unit described as Sections 15, 16, 21, 22, 27, and 28, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to November. Case number 29346, application of Oventive Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Lost Bridge and/or Bear Creek Bakken pools to establish a stand-up 1920-acre space unit described as Sections 10, 15, and 22, Township 148 North, Range 96 West, Dunn County, ND, and authorize 6 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to November. Case number 29641, application of Bison Land and Minerals LLC for an order establishing a 160-acre drilling unit comprised of the northeast quarter of Section 12, Township 160 North, Range 85 West, or alternatively, an 80-acre drilling unit comprised of the west half of the northeast quarter of Section 12, Township 160 North, Range 85 West, Renville County, ND, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well within said drilling unit at any location not closer than 500 feet to the boundaries thereof, as an exception to Section 43-02-03-18 of the NDAC, and/or such other and further relief as the Commission may deem appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward? Okay. And we need a little bit of time here for a break, so why don't we break for a few minutes to get the witnesses prepared here.
Thanks for saving me. Yeah, I give my guys my call.
Okay.
All right, and we are back on the record. In case number 29641. Why don't you go ahead and...
Hi, name's Riley Amos, Senior Operations Manager at Bison Drilling. I'm here on behalf of Bison Land and Mineral LLC, 240 Buckhead Drive, Madison, Mississippi. On the line, I have Greg Pollard, the COO of Bison Land and Mineral, and also Alan Neil Huff, consulting geologist. You're all there, eh, Greg?
Yes, we're here.
All right, and is your first witness going to be Mr. Pollard? Pollard?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Pollard,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
You can go ahead.
You're up, Greg.
All right, we presented you with some documents here regarding our proposal to drill some short lateral wells in the Madison area, Madison Field, Section 12. Hold on just a second. We're having technical difficulty on our end here. But we've had multiple fields, that, as you can read, multiple fields in the Blue L that have been highly productive in certain wells. However, very challenging to replicate that in offset wells. Our proposal is to, due to these complexities, to drill short laterals of 500 to 1,000 feet that are very targeted using HMPA technology that we acquired to highlight these productive pods and make these our drill sites. This does not lend itself to drilling standard horizontal laydown type operations. You can see on the next slide that we're right in the middle of a lot of the Madison area, the Blue L fields, the Dry Creek, Greenfield, North Grano, and Cholo Field are all demonstrative of this stratigraphic complexity.
Greg, sorry to butt really quick. Just when we're saying slides, give the page numbers, so just in case the...
Yeah, I'm sorry. That would be page number 5. We put an inset on page number 6, which has our technology very much like a contour map of what we believe are productive areas, which demonstrate that you have areas that are productive separated by areas that are very non-productive. And we've got the Underland number 1 well drilled by Sun, and the down well 1-12 is drilled by Turtle operating, which are the analogous wells, if you will, that both had significant shows in those wells. And we'll get in more detail into those in the geological portion, which Alan will do. Our land position in the northeast quarter of Section 12, the surface owners are Curtis and Erva Underland, and we do have a signed surface use agreement, and the mineral owners are described there with everything in place on our leasehold. Bison is the operator, and we have 40% interest, and we have just common investors for 60%. And then on the southeast quarter section, which is page 8, we have the surface owner of Schwartz. Again, we have a surface use agreement signed with Mr. Schwartz, and then we do have all the mineral acres lined up. On page number 9, we have a brief drilling program outline. I would like to point out that there is an error in this, a cut and paste error. Our directional plan in the 8.5 intermediate section does not, on the drilling program, follow the actual directional program.
which is the next page. We are on our directional program to accommodate the heel of our well. We have to go back to the south, nudge back to the south, and then go back to the north. We're drilling on just off of the lease line. We're 150 feet off the lease line, our location. Our exit point will be 500 feet from the lease line to the north. And we'll be going due north. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over, unless there's any questions, I will turn it over to Alan Huff to go over the section, page 11 and the play summary and go through the geology on this.
All right. Are there any questions from commission staff? Not yet. But I can check.
They're just reading things up here for a sec, Greg. You might have a question or two.
Greg, this is Bruce Hicks. What's the acronym stand for HMPA?
I'll have to let we got it written down.
Yeah, honestly, it's not technology I'm particularly familiar with, not having used it in my past. It's I believe it's called. Gee whiz.
I'll tell you what, why don't you guys just supplement the record on that? It'd be kind of nice to know what you're using to identify these pods.
Okay, and we'll get it for you before we're through here, I promise.
Yeah, it's as I understand, again, not having used the technology before, as I understand it, it has to do with the concept that the liquid hydrocarbons at the subsurface are reacting with the minerals and fluids around them and emitting some energy that is picked up as a pulse signal at the surface by this equipment that then looks at the frequency and the intensity of that pulsed signal and relates it back to fluid content in the subsurface, whether it's oil versus water. Supposedly this has been very accurate. The statistics support very well that it does a good job of discerning where the non-hydrocarbon bearing areas are, and even a pretty good shot at pointing out where there is the hydrocarbon accumulation. That is the basis for the anomaly map that Greg was just showing in the previous slide.
Sure,
Okay.
you sort of jumped ahead there, Alan. We want to make sure that the commission knows it's you talking here.
Yeah, so that was Mr. Huff responding?
Yes, Alan Huff. Yes, we got to slow down there a little bit, guys. And
Yeah, so for the time being, these are questions directed to
Yeah.
Mr. Pollard. Let me
Yeah,
swear
we gotta
Mr.
stop.
Huff in before he responds to anything.
Okay, if I can, this is Greg Pollard again. The acronym stands for Hydrocarbon Modulated Pulse Analysis.
And Greg, was this seismic run recently, or did you reprocess things that have been run in the past?
This is not a seismic tool. We ran it about a month ago, and it is not seismically run. It is strictly based on the equipment is just pickup mounted, truck mounted, and you just drive over the site. And each one of those dots represent a point that a reading was taken.
Okay, and in what state have you utilized this, or is it utilized?
It's been utilized pretty extensively in Kansas and also in Texas by another company. And we got access and purchased it.
And does it have a depth limit?
No, it does not.
You're talking about the leases, your land position on Exhibit 7 and 8. The northeast of 12, is that one common lease?
The northeast quarter is one common lease, and the southeast quarter is one common lease.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
Greg, on your page number 6, the white and red dots, what do those two colors represent?
The red dots mean a good reading from the HMPA. The white dots mean potentially unproductive or wet if the hydrocarbon is not present. And you can see that corresponds with the contour map inset to the right there.
And I assume,
That's a smoother rendition.
I assume the call out there we're looking at, or the red outline, is that section 12?
Yes, the red outline is the entire section 12.
And on exhibit, or page 10, this is a proposal for the well in the northeast?
Yes, sir.
And what are the surface and bottom hole location footages that I can't quite read them?
What we are, the 7-inch casing landing point is 573 feet from the north line, from the south line, from the midsection line. And the bottom hole location is 1,573 feet. We're proposing a 1,000-foot lateral, but that will be based on drilling operations, whether we go the full 1,000 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, would you be able to supplement the record with, I guess, a write-up or a description of that HMPA process? How the sampling is done, what it's measuring, what it's detecting in the subsurface, and how it's done?
Yes, I can.
Okay, please do so.
Greg, on page 8, the land position is for the southeast quarter of section 12, 16085. That appears to be for case 29642. Should we be combining these two cases for the record?
If we could combine these two, it would be great for us because they are based on the same technology and do all of it in one and just.
Is this same packet going to have all the information for both cases?
It's got the same information for both packages.
Okay.
Both.
Thank you.
All right, is there any objection to combining both these cases for purposes of hearing? Seeing none, that request will be granted. We'll go ahead and combine case number 29642 with case number 29641, and I will read that now. Case number 29642, application of Bison Land and Minerals LLC for an order establishing a 160-acre drilling unit comprised of the southeast quarter of Section 12, Township 160 North, Range 85 West, or alternatively, an 80-acre drilling unit comprised of the west half of the southeast quarter of Section 12, Township 160 North, Range 85 West, Renville County, ND, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well within said drilling unit at any location not closer than 500 feet to the boundaries thereof, as an exception to section 43020318 of the NDAC and or such other relief and further relief as the commission may deem appropriate. So the commission staff, you may continue questioning Mr. Pollard if there are any further questions for him. Seeing none. Sorry.
I do have one other one. Greg, you don't show anything in the east half of the northeast quarter as far as points go. Do you plan to go back and possibly try to develop that area?
Yes, we do. When we were out there filling the field, and we did not want to disrupt any of the farmers' activities, so they're harvesting that, and we will fill that in with true points rather than just a rendition of what's there now. We did get the lease line though, the section line, and that is what we believe. If you look at the north section line and the east section line with the poor dots, we feel like that does partially condemn that area at some point there. So we wanted to maintain our wellbore location within the area that is fully encompassed with the good readings.
Your request is for 160-acre drilling units, although you also have an alternative on 80-acre stand-ups. What's your development plan? What well is going to be drilled first?
The first well is the one that is noted with the Bison location, and it is West Dry Creek 1-8. And we have a permit in with the Dakota Mineral Resource Board. It is up for approval, waiting on this hearing to ensure that it meets the spacing requirements. Just to give you a little bit of information about Bison, both Land and Minerals and Bison drilling, we purchased a drilling rig so that we could do this. We feel that confident in what we're doing, and our current plans are to, once this is approved, we would like to be drilling as quickly as possible. In fact, we have drilling rig hands coming up next week, so I would love to expedite this if at all possible. I've been working with the guys over in the other office to get the program approved. So we feel like what we're doing is very, I won't say standard, but logical. That the first well would be the Bison location indicated there. Then we have two locations in the south part that would be horizontal, going from either the south center of the border to the northwest, and the other one in that other wide outline box that goes from the southeast to the southwest.
Greg, when you're mentioning that, just mention the pages again, just because some people we're just not catching exactly where you're pointing all the time.
I'm sorry, that's all on page 6 still.
All right. Yeah, just when you're referencing, make sure we're talking so everyone knows where we're at.
Greg, your application in 29642 was for a 160 comprised of the southeast, or in the alternative, an 80-acre stand-up west half of the southeast. So what you're describing is you would want both of those, west half of the southeast and the east half of the southeast designated, right?
Could you repeat that? I didn't fully understand what you were asking.
Your application in case 29642 is for the southeast of 12, and you're asking for a 160-acre drilling unit comprised of the southeast of 12 Or in the alternative, you're asking for the west half of the southeast as a stand-up 80. But what you just described to me was also that you may want to drill in the east half of the southeast quarter. And I was asking you if you also wanted that designated an 80 if the commission were to want to grant 80-acre drilling units here.
Yes, I do. I would like to have the 80 acres. And if we have to come back after our first well for another hearing to explain that, I'm fine with that. I think our first well will indicate that this is the proper way to do this exploitation of the reserves that are still available.
After you drill your first well, will you evaluate it for a few months, or will you drill these wells back to back?
We will evaluate the first well.
Okay, how many months are you going to produce it before you consider a second?
I'm guessing 1 to 2 months would be, in the success case, 1 month. If it's marginal, 2 months.
Okay, just so you know, if the well is found productive, it's going to have to submit a completion report immediately because it would be determined a wildcat well. We would then docket it for a temporary spacing hearing, and I'm not saying that we're not going to grant more than one of these drilling units, but then we would consider the spacing in the area.
Yes, sir. That's fully understandable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Greg, for the west half of the southeast of 12, do you have proposed surface 7-inch and bottom hole locations?
No, we have not. We have not done anything on that yet. Those are notional wells.
So you have an application to establish the west half, the southeast as an 80-acre drilling unit as an alternative, but you have no idea where the well's gonna be?
We have ideas where the well is going to be. We just have not had surveyors out to survey in the exact location. Those will be based on the results of our first well, the West Dry Creek number 1.
So from looking at page 6, it appears it would be drilled from the near the center line of the west line of the southeast quarter and then drilled to the southeast?
Yes. Either that or due to the road, we may drill it from the center of the south line up to the northwest.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we can move on to Mr. Huff. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay, then you can begin with your testimony.
Sorry, Alan, I just want to make sure when we're talking about this that we reference the pages so nobody gets behind.
Certainly.
Perfect.
Let's go to, I performed the geologic evaluation here on behalf of Bison, starting with slide number 11. A lot of words there basically outline what we are attempting to address geologically, recognizing from the index map on 12 and the expanded structural map for the Renville County area where we'll be drilling these wells, that we are in a super basin setting here with a good with a good proven charge coming from a world-class system here up onto a genome carbonate ramp with erratic reservoir development and complex stratigraphic succession. Prior exploration was drilled on the plunging noses going from the northeast to the southwest. They were drilled on the structural highs, as would be anticipated for anyone exploring this area. And yet what we find often is that the reservoir development is highly variable within these Mission Canyon carbonate sequences, and that oil saturation is going to be a function not only of height on the structure, but also of the reservoir quality of the rocks, both of which are quite variable in the proven accumulations along the trend. If you go to slide or the item number 13, you'll see an enlargement of the insert for the previous slide, where you're looking at structural contours on the base of the regional seal, which is the key mapping horizon for an accumulation in these Blue L and Sherwood carbonate. And what you can notice immediately is that colored polygons typically are located along the plunging noses or on the structural highs, as they should be. What you'll also notice if you look in between, even within the syncline, there are wells that were drilled off structure that still had decent oil shows. In fact, in several cases, free recoveries of oil on test, oil in the mud, etc. And these bring to mind the question as to whether or not these are purely structurally related, or if we might be looking at a larger encompassing stratigraphic trap where the hydrocarbons are migrating preferentially up the noses and then backfilling down even into some of the synclinal areas. Now, that's the upside story for all of this. But again, our initial well will be drilled more in a crustal location near a proven hydrocarbon column, looking down dip for a little bit thicker and better quality reservoir development in the Blue L carbonate. I have some examples from area wells, in this case a stratigraphic cross-section through the green field, which has a well there. The fourth well on the right is the Hunt Burbage. I'm on slide number 14 now. The Hunt Burbage well was drilled some 25 years ago. It's been producing oil at a level of around 8 to 10 barrels a day, I think, for many years, with very modest decline. That production is coming from about a 6 to 8 foot interval of relatively tight matrix-type carbonate, which actually improved off structure when you go to the back to the left on this to the Aztec Lizette number 1. That well is down dip. Again, this is stratigraphic cross-section. It's hung on the base of that regional seal, which is the State A shale marker. And the rocks improve, they thicken and improve in quality off structure, but in this case they're non-hydrocarbon, and they did not test hydrocarbons. So what we think we would like to do is try to resolve exactly where we want to be relative to the structural positions. And if you go to the next slide, which is number 15, these are just some cartoon models for subtle carbonate ramp systems. The top block diagram is more the setting we feel like we're in, which is the far up dip reaches of a low energy carbonate shelf. It's got anhydritic, evaporitic tidal flats and subcoasts at the top of that. And there's low energy lagoonal mudstone, and then flanked by where you would expect to have the higher quality carbonate in some high energy granular looking rhyolitic and skeletal framework deposits. However, what I'm seeing in some of the wells is that we can't always count on these higher energy carbonates as being the best reservoirs. In fact, in some instances, the down plunge wells seem to show them to be even tighter reservoirs. They're sealed up by a sparry calcite cement, and it's actually the finer grain, lower energy mudstone that are dolotomized into a sucrosic texture that turns out to be a better quality reservoir, all of which is being sealed laterally by the up-dip anhydrides evaporites of this subcut sequence. I mentioned a potential Permian Basin analog going back many years ago to a play I made back in the late 70s where we drilled on the same type of carbonate ramp. It's a different age, but it is very similar geologic setting. We went in thinking we were going to hit the high-energy carbonate, skeletal carbonate fluids and such. Those were tightly cemented with spar, but these low-energy lagoonal mudstones have been dolotomized into really nice sucrosic textures that gave us good oil saturations and excellent productivity from vertical wells back in that time. What we would like to do, of course, is determine from the wells that we will drill here exactly where we want to be on structure. If I go to 16, it's a zoom in on the insert up in the top right corner where the gold and the flesh colored polygons are located. We're specifically looking at section 12 outlined here in red. It's labeled with West Dry Creek, and it's got a couple of wells in it that are important to us. The Underland well is the up dip well that only had 6 feet.
Did we move to page 17 there, Alan?
Yes, sir. No, I'm on
Just
16. Sorry.
real quick, I don't want to, just the testimony so far has been off by a page in numbers, so when he said 15, he was on 16.
Yeah,
is-
that's,
so-
I'm trying to keep
So
up
it
with
looks
him,
like there's a
Alan.
discrepancy between his exhibits versus ours, but.
Yeah, you gotta just slow down and give us all a chance to keep up with you there and ask a few couple questions.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I did not realize that the numbers were off. So what we're looking at the Bison Play Area Control Map, and it has the zoom on the Dry Creek and West Dry Creek areas, showing the key wells that I've been able to look at and analyze for reservoir quality, thickness, oil pay potential, and et cetera. And the Underland well is in the northeast quadrant of section 12, as shown under that leftmost gray arrow where it has the cross section there in pink. It goes from the Underland down to the downwind. And what we see is a really tight low porosity. It's about up to 10%. That's modest, I guess. That expands down dip into about a 16-foot zone with comparable porosity, a little bit lighter hydrocarbon, but a proven accumulation here. Our well will be roughly a third of the way between the Underland and the downwind wells, and we'll go along the contours and then off structure and dip to the north slightly before we terminate that. We hope to find a thicker interval and assess whether or not the higher quality rock are high on the structure, or maybe if they thicken and expand, getting better quality down flank. The next slide, I guess it's 16 to you guys. Has
18 for us.
Oh, sorry. That's a core analysis and a little slab from one of the 10 pay zones there in the well. It has hydrocarbon bearing potential, but clearly it's too thin for us to target. But you can see quite clearly the texture and everything of the rocks are relatively tight, except where you have some scattered bugs, maybe a oolitic texture, and finally crystalline sucrosic type rock, and it has residual oil saturations, although it's blown down considerably at the surface from the core. But then we look at another well on trend that is a much better one on the Dry Creek, and that's the Bison Southeast #1 well, the Dry Creek reservoir. There is over 50 feet of sucrosic dolomite with 15 to 20% porosity, and this one's just on a separate structure down to the southeast, and it's quite improved relative to the Underland well. So the erratic development of reservoir along these structural features is complicated, and we feel that drilling a lateral well along there will give us a better chance at a better shot at touching more rock and hopefully finding higher oil saturation. There are some wells, and I'm moving up to the next slide, 20. A couple of wells. Sorry. Moving up to the production profiles, southeast well, which is the Crestal Sucrosic Dolomite Reservoir, one of the better ones we've seen. And you can see the rather stable decline rates over the last 15 years. Oil in dominant over the water production. These, of course, are the sort of targets that we would like to find with the lateral and stay within that zone and not go too far down dip to risk water encroachment. In the same area and downflank from that SE1 field is the McLean number 1, which is a little bit lower on the structure, but it also has a lower oil saturation in porous rock, so as one might expect. And you can see, once again, in this case, a relatively stable decline in equal portions water to oil. The next slide is one that just tries to encapsulate the theory, what we're trying to accomplish by drilling shorter laterals higher on the structure in what we hope are a better quality reservoir rocks. We would like to stay away from the swept areas or residual oil zones like the bottom left corner would exemplify an example of what that would look like on logs. And then the image above it is actually a scanning electron microscope showing, in this case, fractured porosity, but bubbles of oil that are isolated within that porosity, and how they are not connected, they're not continuous phase. And I believe these are the sort of residual oils that you see after you swept the pay zone, or maybe even or down dip of the actual accumulation. What we're looking for is more on the right-hand side, in the upper right corner. We'd like to stay away from the swept zones and get into a transition zone between the crustal-most accumulations and what we can find by drilling laterally down dip and expose ourselves to more of the rock. The residual oil would hopefully look more like the picture in the center, where you actually have the globules of oil that are linked together. They're becoming a continuous phase, and the saturation may be anywhere from 35 to 65% in those zones. We believe that drilling through those zones would give us some water cuts as well, but hopefully a significant flow of oil. Of course, the desire would be to get up into a clean oil zone like the bottom right, where we've got a continuous phase of oil where the droplets are linked together. You've got a filament of oil which is moved into and fully saturated the available pore space, and you would produce clean oil from that. But I believe the rocks in this case will probably not allow anything quite that optimistic. The next slide is actually a horrible slide, but it helps to explain the concept that really most of you guys understand in terms of migration and backfilling of a trapping geometry beneath the impermeable seal. Realizing that even within the hydrocarbon accumulation itself, you're going to have some poor quality rocks that are still going to have water saturation in them, such that if you drill short lateral through those, you will flow water along with some of your oil. And then the series on the right is actually a visual of that in Course Lab, where oil is being injected in the bottom, and it shows the migration route, the impedance below the baffle, the increasing saturation, and then the breakthrough of the barriers and migration of oil vertically. I think you guys understand that quite clearly. The next slide is the last one, and this is the dream for this ramp, the whole area here. We are along a major hydrocarbon producing fairway, and it's not dissimilar from the continuation of what we see in southeast Saskatchewan. The older publications there show a series of discrete pools that since look like they may have merged into more of a continuous accumulation, with the intervening dry holes being a function of rock quality more than presence within a traffic geometry. That's been learned even more recently with some of the horizontal technology on the flanks of the Permian Basin, where individual units, shown here in the bottom right corner, where you've got three different separate accumulations on the original interpretation, have since been found to be part of a more continuous hydrocarbon accumulation since the horizontal drilling and infill has occurred. So I'm suggesting that given the fact we've got some free recoveries of oil and way off structure, even synclinal locations along the trend, that we may be looking at a similar sort of thing, given the fact that we're up dip along a preferred migration route from a super basin. So we might at some point actually think these fields join together and get some tremendous upside for this portion of the basin. So any questions on all that?
I guess, Mr. Huff, are you continuing to testify after this, or is that concluding your portion of the testimony?
That will conclude my portion. I'll turn back over to Mr. Pollard.
All right. Any questions from commission staff?
Alan, with what you presented, I just want to make sure it's relatively clear in the record. Your intent at this point is to attempt to target something slightly off of the primary structure. Is that correct?
Well, we have instances where some of the crust of the reservoir interval has thinned significantly, and we're thinking that if there's any paleo expression on these plunging noses, it may be influencing the reservoir development at the top of maybe higher energy rocks that may be diagenetically cemented and thinner. By going a little bit off flank and down structure, we might expose ourselves to a thicker, potentially higher quality reservoir that's also saturated within the column.
Okay. Are you targeting the same interval that's been produced vertically in the area, the Blue L?
We are, yes. In fact, we'll be drilling down and then kicking off and drilling horizontally through the Blue L and Sherwood zones.
Okay. Well, the Blue L or Sherwood, or potentially either or both? Or?
The Blue L is the main target at this point in time, but I'm not ruling out on subsequent activity that we'll be drilling in through the Sherwood as well.
Okay, so if the commission were to establish a kind of a pool definition for the drilling area,
it'd be Blue.
Do you want it limited to the Blue L, or would you suggest something that would include?
Yeah, from this until we get encouragement from the there have been 3 recoveries from the Sherwood as well, but until we get further encouragement, we'll just focus on the Blue L.
Okay. There's a number of different what look like structure maps, I guess, inset structure maps throughout your exhibits, but could you provide a structure and a potential isopac for the Blue L right over section 12?
I can certainly do that, yes. We will be available data.
Yeah, give us just the supplement that includes section 12 and, some of the immediately surrounding lands, but give that as a supplemental exhibit, so it's clean that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
And I guess I will ask for both the structure and isopac for that.
All right. I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, do you say that you're moving on to Mr. Pollard again, or is that?
Yep, moving back over to you, Greg. You have the floor.
Okay, if we will go to slide 24, I believe, economics.
Yep.
The economics on this is anyone's guess. I will be frank, and I'm not a reservoir engineer, so I'm doing it very much on what makes sense. And the two analog wells that we've chosen to take into account are the Burbage number 1 and the Smith and Bayman number 1. The Burbage number 1, both of these are vertical wells. Both of them have 8 foot of perforation. The Burbage well had an IP of 149 barrels of oil, 1 barrel of water. The High Plains Smith and Bayman 1 well had an IP of 25 barrels of oil and 2 barrels of water. Both have been very successful wells. If we go to the next slide, we're going to have a minimum of a 500-foot open pool complete well. Based on the production rates of 25 to 149 barrels of oil, we're going to have 62 and a half times interval. So we've got, I think any of us could pick a number, but I picked a number of 100 barrels a day. And that's only 6% of the 25 barrels a day over the same interval. So if we assume that we've got a 100 barrel a day well, going to the next slide, we have a fairly significant decline factor there. Not like a Bakken well or a shale well, but for a typical well, conventional well. And we use an oil price of $85, which is aggressive, but even at that, with a $1 3/4 million well cost, we have a less than a year payout on that. An ultimate recovery of approximately $10 million, so about a 5 to 1 payout on it. And that's where we stand. We feel like we've got a very interesting project. We feel like we've got a very good project economically, both for us and North Dakota. Are looking forward to getting operations going up there, both from an operator standpoint as well as a drilling contract standpoint, and become part of the North Dakota family.
Mr. Pollard, does that conclude your testimony, or were you?
Yes, sir. That.
Okay. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Greg, I guess one more thing, not necessarily pertinent to what you just testified to, but I previously asked for a supplemental on the HMPA technology description. If in that supplemental you could also include a kind of a test case where it's been run and hydrocarbons have been produced as a result of its running.
Okay.
If that type of example exists, please also include that in that supplemental.
Okay. We're new. How do we submit these to you?
Typically, I'd tell you to email them into Bethany Cattermas, but she's out. So, Sarah, okay, got her email address. It's.
Yeah, I've got.
We'll provide the details to your
Yes.
representative here.
And I do have one other question for the commission. What is the anticipated time for making coming to a decision on this?
let's start with how long do you think it'll take to get the supplementals in?
So if you get that stuff into them today, Greg, they'll give you a quick answer.
Those will be,
Sorry, what kind of time frame? And we will set a date because we'll have to leave the record open for those supplements. So what kind of time frame do we need for all of those supplements?
we will do tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Well, should we, just to be sure, to be safe, should we keep the record open for maybe the rest of the week, just in case there's some hang up? That would give you until, let me pull open my calendar. That'll be till the 28th, Friday, October 28th for supplements.
Okay.
The record will remain open until Friday, October 28th for supplemental exhibits. All right. But it looks like we still had a few more. Do we have more testimony to go through here, or?
No, sir.
No, those are for your viewing pleasure.
Yeah, that's just for, those things were just thrown in on the backside just for more reference, for bigger blowing of views and stuff for people that didn't have glasses.
All right, and
Just a little
so
bit extra thrown in there.
would you then offer these exhibits then to the record for this hearing?
Yeah.
And the exhibits are admitted. I guess, is there anything further in this matter that we need to discuss?
I don't have anything. Greg or Alan?
No. Nope.
Okay. Well, that will conclude the hearings in cases number 29641 and 29642. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank
We'll move on to case number 29643 in the matter of Mimir Energy LLC requesting the 31 operating LLC be removed as operator of certain abandoned produced water underground gathering pipeline systems and the Evanston number 2 saltwater disposal well, and that Mimir Energy LLC be replaced as operator thereof in order to reactivate said produced water underground gathering pipeline systems and the Evanston number 2 saltwater disposal well. Said produced water underground gathering pipeline systems being located in the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter and southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of section 30, township 162 north, range 81 west, Bottineau County, ND. The Evanston number 2 saltwater disposal well being located in the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 31, township 162 north, range 81 west, Bottineau County, ND. This case is dismissed. Case number 29664. This case has been remanded to this hearing room. That is an application of Empire North Dakota LLC for an order pursuant to NDAC 4302-0388.1, authorizing saltwater disposal into the Dakota Group in the Erickson F1 well, file number 6467, in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 5-163 north-78 west, northeast land of field, Bottineau County, ND, pursuant to NDAC Chapter 430205 and such other relief as is appropriate. While interested parties come forward, I will note that Empire is not here. The commission received an objection letter. I guess, do you want to?
I wanted to note for the record that Empire was sent a copy of the opposition letter by email and made aware that the concerns in the letter needed to be addressed at the hearing. And because Empire did not appear today, I would recommend that the case be continued.
Sure. And that request is granted pursuant to 43020388.1, subsection 6. Assuming there is opposition and to accord due process to Empire, this case will be continued to the November docket or to the December docket. Anything further in this matter? Seeing none, that will conclude the hearing in case number 29664. We are off the record.